Good afternoon, everybody. You're hanging out with Joe Leonardo and Alexander Turbin, comic books from coast to coast. We're looking at some really cool comic books today. We'll be looking at one of the all-time greatest creators and just like one of the most unique comic book artists out there. We're going to be taking a look at the unprecedentedly awesome Bill Sienkiewicz. And we're also going to be looking at some very, very aesthetic, moody art from another great master of impressionistic comic book making, Dave McKean. How you doing today, Alex?
I'm doing good, but we're not looking at Dave McKean.
Oh, we're not doing Dave McKean? I thought we were doing him.
No.
Who's the
You're
other?
gonna do him. You're gonna do him at a future time. We're gonna look at Eddie Campbell.
I don't even know who that is, dude. I don't have
Remember
anything from him.
from Hell?
Oh, okay. From hell. Yeah, I don't
Right.
have any of his
Which,
stuff, so we'll just have to do
yeah,
that all
yeah,
from your side. All right.
yeah.
Well,
Which is okay because
we'll save Dave McKean
yeah,
for another day.
yeah, definitely. I definitely think he deserves more exposure than Dave McKean. Although he has a really small body of work, really relatively. But let's jump into Bill Sienkiewicz.
Uh,
is that how you said his name when you first saw it?
no, I always thought it was Sienkiewicz or whatever.
Really,
Sienkiewicz.
really.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
always
I
was like,
mean,
this Bill Sienkiewicz.
I'm not sure, you know what I mean? Like his name, like I've always been pretty good at catching some of the odder names out there. Like I
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
like we're seeing Whilst Portacio's name for the first
yeah,
time and
yeah,
saying it back to people and people just being like, what? Like who are you talking about? Whilst
yeah.
Portazio or whatever. I was like, dude, Whilst Portacio, man, like the guy from X-Men. Like people just be like, what the heck? But you know the one I did like I did struggle with as a kid was Frank Frazetta. I think I always thought it was
Huh.
like Frank Franzada. I always thought there was an
Huh.
N in there, like Frank Franzada is what I always thought
Yeah,
it was.
yeah,
Franzada. And I said that for
yeah.
forever, like, until like
Yeah.
just like maybe like
Just-
5 or 6 years ago when I finally dialed it down to, oh, it's Frazetta or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But
So
Sienkiewicz, I
let's
don't
get
know, he
in.
was always on my radar. He's the Polish guy. I think that's what he calls himself on
Yeah.
this Instagram is the
Oh,
original
really?
Polish guy or the real Polish guy or something like that.
What's up, Branchy Lover? Hey,
Branchy Lover, what's going on,
do
bro? Yeah,
you
it's good to see
follow
you.
Bill Sienkiewicz?
Yeah, throw us a line. Let us know what's going on. You're hanging out with the comic book guys from Comics on Coast to Coast, and we're going to take a look at some amazing artists. And this is not something he's known for, obviously, but I have a huge affinity for these. And back in the day, when before streaming and all that, nonsense, like when a rad movie was coming out, like Star Wars or Blade Runner or Raiders of the Lost Ark
Yeah,
or whatever it was, the comic book companies always did a comic book version of the film, like,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I loved these as a kid growing up. I had like the comic book version of Blade Runner. I bought the comic book version of Raiders. I bought the comic book version of, all the Star Wars movies. Everybody bought those. You bought the movie adaptation comic book of the Dark Crystal. You know what I mean? And they're all so much fun.
right.
And then, like when and in that way, you got to experience the film over and over again, like we get to now, obviously with automatic streaming and that kind of stuff. But you had to lend a touch of your imagination to it as well, in order
Yeah,
to really experience that. And I mean, it's like an value, and some of the art in these things is insanely good. And I feel like it's like there's a little bit of a tragedy that these things have kind of gotten lost to time, as it were. I mean,
see, I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I have never really liked adaptations at all, and
oh,
I have very few of them. And the ones that I do have are like I got when I was a little bit older or whatever. And I just have never really liked adaptations, especially Star Wars. I've
dude,
never. I don't think there's ever been a Star Wars comic book that I've really liked.
I loved the Return of the Jedi comic, and I
Yeah,
loved the Empire Strikes Back. Both of them done by Al Williamson. Because like
yeah,
the thing is like so like Flash Gordon is like the inception of Star Wars, right? You know what I mean? Like Star Wars
right,
is like I'm saluting Flash Gordon, and
right,
by doing that salute to that idea, he creates an entirely new paradigm for like us kids that are, coming along like fresh and new to the idea. And it's like Lucas is like looking at Alex Raymond's work, right? And going, this stuff inspires me. It's Alex Raymond's work
Right.
and it's Frank Frazetta's work on Buck Rogers, right? And Raymond doing Flash Gordon. And he's like, this stuff inspires me so much. And we've even seen like that image of the Wookiee walking through the doorway that, it's like a big shadow. It's not a Wookiee, but it looks like it could be, and it's a Buck Rogers cover. And it's coming through like this round doorway in a spaceship. And you just see it all there coming together. And it's like really cool and like full circle-ish, right? It's because like Al Williamson trained under Raymond, right? And when Alex Raymond stopped doing Flash Gordon, Al Williamson took it over. And like this is the stuff that is inspiring Star Wars. And the Star Wars gets turned into this film, which becomes itself the inspiration for a whole new generation of people to look at that kind of stuff, right? And then Al Williamson, who was the trained protege of Alex Raymond, draws Star Wars in the exact same style as Flash Gordon.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like George Lucas looked at all that stuff and that's what inspired it, right? And then at the end, he gets to see his own ideas transferred into that original art style that inspired his ideas in the first place. You know what I mean? There's a certain sort of like beautiful, full circle encompassment and that kind of a thing. You know what I mean? To me.
Yeah. Yep. So what you're looking at, and we're doing the poll for Bill Sienkiewicz and Eddie Campbell. What you're looking at is the Dune adaptation, which is I've don't have a copy. I think I've actually seen them in the dollar bin and pass them over, but I'm definitely going to, if I ever see them again in the dollar bins, I'm definitely going to grab them, or I might even grab them. The interesting thing there though is those are very realistic looking, like they look like the actual actors and the characters and stuff.
Yeah,
Most adaptations don't.
Yeah, these are drawn from, you could tell he probably had a ton of reference from the film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they had probably just fed him a big, huge, like awesome book full of like, just photographic reference of, as the film was going along, or he must have had something like that. Cause yeah, dude, these are like beautifully, recreated from photos clearly, you know what I mean? But like just stunningly gorgeous work. And I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on this particular piece right here because clearly this is not what he's known for. But at the same time,
go back to the title page and show us who the did he do the pencils and inks or
I
what?
hate to disappoint you, but
oh yeah, that's your coverless one.
the coverless and all that stuff is on the cover, unfortunately. So I don't have it.
Yeah.
Let me see on the back. Nope.
I would be willing to bet he did the pencils and the inks.
I'm pretty sure. I was just going to say, just by looking at this, I'm pretty like 99.9% sure he did the inks on it too,
Yeah.
Because it's just too speckly. It's just too impressionistic for someone to come on top of his work and be this brave. You know what I mean?
When did that come out? Does that have that stuff on it too?
No, none of the indicia, none of that stuff was on here, man. Sorry. But it's the 80s. It's somewhere in the 80s. I want to say it's like 83 or like 82. It's somewhere around there. And you just kind of can tell, like, obviously someone else did lettering and someone else colored this,
Yeah.
But you could just tell by the level where the only other person, I mean, just by looking at these inks, and I mean, this is highly doubtful. But like, say, look at this page right here. Like, who would you say, if it wasn't Bill Sienkiewicz, who would you say inked this?
I don't know, maybe Klaus Janson.
Walter Simonson.
Maybe. Yeah. I can see that. I can definitely see that. I wonder if Sienkiewicz was part of that, because there was like the artist studio of Simonson and Chaikin and a few others. I wonder if Sienkiewicz was in that. Yeah, I don't know if Frank Miller was in that, but maybe, and could have been Sienkiewicz too. I don't know.
I mean, dude, look at this one right here. Like, this is so cool. I mean, like, that the actor or whatever. I mean, it just looks great or whatever. But it's the like the composition, like how she's like here in this little corner right here, right? He's like approaching her, right? And then the next shot is just this bowl. It's all black, with
Yeah,
just this
yeah,
great white arch right here, just separating all the black.
yeah,
Excuse me.
yeah.
And
One of
dude,
the
I
things
just love
about
how she's right here in the
yeah,
corner. How she's like almost
yeah,
in her own
yeah,
box, but also
yeah.
still in the same image, kind of. You know what I mean? Like, dang, that's
Yeah,
badass.
yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. One of the odd things about Sienkiewicz is he's got this crazy ability to make realistic looking crazy stuff. You know, like it's realistic looking, yes, like it's a Alex Ross kind of realism, but then on the other hand, it's still crazy Sienkiewicz weirdness.
No, you're 100% right. No, dude, that's so right. Like it's like on one hand, there's almost this like Frazetta style, like realisticness to it. But at the
Yeah,
same time,
yeah,
he's achieving it through all these very strange values. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
not
yeah,
cross hatching and stuff like that. It's all
yeah,
this
exactly.
scribble and scratch, and it's super
Yeah,
impressionistic. You know what I mean? And yeah, I just wanted to share this with people because I know this is not something people see, and this is not a comic book. I don't think I've all the comic book shows I watch and all the people that have covered stuff. No one has ever covered the comic book adaptation of Dune by Bill Sienkiewicz, but it's a
yeah,
shame,
yeah,
and it's just
yeah.
absolutely just awash and gorgeous. I mean, just like so powerful. Just I mean, everything in that book is just it's absolutely stunning.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you
it's
know,
amazing. I don't think he's ever done anything that I haven't really loved. I mean,
yeah, he's
even those Moon Knights in the very beginning of his career, where he was trying to be Neil Adams, and we're going to show that eventually. We're going to get back to Sienkiewicz multiple times because he's just such a
you have
master
to.
that
Yeah, you have to.
he deserves way more than just one show.
Yeah, and the evolution of him, you know what I mean? Because he
Yeah, yeah,
evolves
the
and he
evolution.
starts as something totally different than what he evolves into. Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
just like we were speaking recently, and bringing up, and we brought this up on the show before too, how like there's just not that many. It's like so hard to become truly identifiable in your art and incomprehensibly incomparable to others around you. There's only a handful of people
yeah,
who've achieved it, you know what I mean?
yeah,
To where
yeah,
you would just look at their art and instantly know this is this person. Because like so
yeah,
many people can draw well, but they just, like just like me or you, we just draw well and it's hard, and you're not like some indescribable genius where everyone looks at your stuff and goes, "Oh my god, like this is a
right, yeah,
Salvador Dali or whatever." You
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah,
But
yeah.
some of the comic book guys out there have achieved that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And one of the complaints that I've heard from non-comic book reading people, especially other artists, is that they'll say, like I had a teacher at Kubert's once say this, and he wasn't a comic book guy. He was a an advertising guy. He said he didn't really like comic books because he thought all of the art looked the same, and that's just. I can understand where he's coming from because you look at different time periods from Marvel or DC, whatever, and a lot of their comics books do look a lot alike. I mean, but then you have these breakout artists that you kind of have to search for a little bit to really grasp the comic book medium to its fullest.
Yeah, dude, are you seeing this right here? Like this soft,
It's
beautiful face right
beautiful.
here, like
It's beautiful.
so
And
freaking insane.
and it's
Like,
that composition. It's that composition you were talking about. Like so much
mhm.
of comic books is composition. It really begins and ends with it.
And it's funny
But
how
then you
like
thought,
like
yeah,
what you're just saying about how like in generations past so much of the work does have this like complete similarity to it where it's just like
yeah,
everything is kind of the same and there's all these house styles whether it's
yeah,
Charlton or Key or Marvel or Atlas or whatever it is.
yeah,
They're very interchangeable, but that's the one the amazing thing about comic books is how it grows as a medium and
yeah,
how it can
yeah,
become so it's an anamorphic thing that can become so many different things, you know what I mean? And depending
yeah.
on the
I totally
talent and
agree.
the person and the time they're willing to put into it, comics can truly be a transforming thing and it could like really change people's perspective of the world. You could tell a story that's so beautiful and meaningful. You're reading Monster right now, so you're
Yeah,
getting like,
yeah,
you're seeing like what a comic book artist can do when they set their mind to something. I mean, I know that Monster took Barry Windsor Smith like 30 years to do or something
well,
like
yeah.
that.
Well, it's like 1,000 pages. So, but
Yeah,
it's yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
but I mean, like this piece right here, this beautiful impressionistic shot of the city, and then like this little tiny shot of Daredevil bouncing off of
Yeah,
this bus.
it's
You know
amazing.
what I mean?
And the
But
lighting,
it's
the like
yeah, dude. But you got to think how
Sienkiewicz's
much
lighting
work
is
goes into
just
everything.
crazy.
It's like you want to draw Daredevil like being Daredevil, and that's the whole inception of the idea. But it's just like 50 hours of painting a beautiful city street, and then like 20 minutes of Daredevil. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not even sure. Like Sienkiewicz, like I've said, anybody out there who hasn't watched a video of Bill Sienkiewicz doing his artwork, you need to watch it. It is just the craziest thing. Like he'll start off with the thing that I saw him doing was this a car. He was doing a like an old beat up truck in like you know how you see people in their yards, they'll have this old beat up truck, that
sure.
hasn't ran for 30 years and stuff. So he was drawing that and he starts out and you're just like, all right, that's a cool truck, whatever. But then he like starts spraying stuff and throwing ink down and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And then it ends up this amazing, you know, jalopy that you can feel the rust. And
And he'll just come
it's
in
an
and just like
incredible thing to
squirt.
see.
Yeah, he just like
Yeah.
squirts paint down and smudges it with
Yeah.
his hands, and
Yep.
goes
Yep.
around. It's just like
Yeah.
you're just like watching them, just like what? And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden,
Yeah.
it just like
Exactly. And he
transforms
does
right
it
in front of your eyes.
He does it so fast that you can't grasp what he's doing unless you watch the video. You have to watch it like a dozen times, I would think, to
Like,
totally
look
get it.
at
I
that,
love that
dude.
scene. I love that
That's
scene. That is
so gorgeous,
that's the epitome of Daredevil movement. Like people talk
dude. It
about the
is.
differences between Daredevil and Spider-Man and the way they jump through the sky and stuff. That is Daredevil right there.
That shot of her face just turned up and her hair flying behind her and stuff. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
man,
It's amazing.
whatever. Well, we're on our 15-minute mark for this, so let's go ahead and head over and look at the other guy because we don't want to give
Okay.
too much time to one dude over another artist. You know what I mean?
All
Everybody
right.
knows how amazing Sienkiewicz is.
Yeah, and like I said, we're gonna look. The thing I was looking at was Doctor Zero. Have you ever seen that?
I haven't, but I'm really intrigued to take a look right now.
That was this is Sikiewicz's stuff. And
Oh,
he,
okay,
I
okay.
believe he created it. This is like an epic thing, and I believe he created the character and they ran with it. But we'll get back to other Sienkiewicz stuff shortly because, like I said, he's just too amazing to not go over multiple times.
I agree 100%. Yeah, just
But
like
the other
he's
guy we're
just
going
like
over, the
Sam
other
Keith
guy we're
is
going
another one
over,
like that. You just got to bring him
yeah,
up again and again and again because the
yeah,
work's so
yeah.
profound.
Yeah, yeah. The other guy we're going over, Eddie Campbell, I think we both agree is the weaker artist, obviously, but it's hard to compare, a fantastic, top three artist like Sienkiewicz to anybody. But then you've got Eddie Campbell, who is probably most known. He's known for this Ace. I believe this is his first published work, which is like pretty old, I guess. And I don't know if I've read this. I probably did because I remember getting it back in the day, but I don't think it was one of those indies that I would see it and then I would see it maybe the fifth issue down the road or whatever. But he's mostly known for From Hell, and I think that's where most people would know. But I think we both generally um, don't love this artist.
Well, it's not that I wouldn't say, I think a lot of people really, really appreciate him. You know what I mean? Like, it's just that, once again, he's a very impressionistic person.
He
And
is. He
sometimes,
is.
those kind of things can be difficult to convey, especially because he's working clearly in a black and white medium. And I mean, nothing that
Yeah.
we've looked at by Sienkiewicz is strictly in black and white. He's had the anchor of color on top of all of his stuff. And
Right.
color is a unifying thing. It can really help images, bring them together, focus concepts in the composition that might struggle, whether or not if it didn't have a color to highlight it. You know what I mean? Like color can really bring things together in a very important way that not to knock black and white, because black and white I think is the ultimate medium for comics, but it just goes to tell like the ability of the artist, you know what I mean, because so much is conveyed in the idea between black and white and color, and you can do so much with one and so much without the other, and it's I have to give slightly more applause to anyone working in that strictly black and white medium,
Yeah.
because it's just a slightly more difficult place to convey everything perfectly. But the
Yeah,
more
yeah.
you're able to do that in black and white, probably the better artist you are going to be.
The
You know what I mean?
this actually has a color version, which I really want. I really want it is because I don't think it's I'm pretty sure it's just the one trade paperback. I believe I can't remember if I have the trade paperback of this or not. But one of the things that I'm pretty sure that Alan Moore chose Eddie Campbell to do this because he this is like oh, what's the time period that I'm thinking of? Victorian age. His art really leans to this Victorian age type of thing. And I'm not saying that I don't like Eddie Campbell. I don't say that I'm not saying I dislike his art. It's just he's probably really low on the list of
Is he
artists.
also the is he the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen guy too?
No, no, that's
Okay.
Kevin O'Neill,
They look very
who we
similar. You know what I mean?
we do. No, not really. I think if you look at him real close, you might think that. I mean, if you look at him, you know, from far away or whatever, then you might think that. But when you kind of dissect their art or whatever, or you look at it closer, I would say he Kevin O'Neill is probably more like Joe Quesada.
Think
If you're
so?
yeah, if you're
I'll have to,
dissecting
and,
their
maybe it's
work.
just it might be just the particular book. It might just be his work on Extraordinary Gentlemen. You
Yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
maybe
Like,
because it's that Victorian era themed stuff
yeah,
again.
yeah. Like he might be focusing it on like a certain type of like line type of idea or whatever. Because it's
Yeah.
very geometric in that comic
Yeah,
book. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
yeah. It is
everything's
super
built on like
geometric.
sort of squares and rectangles more than the circle shape or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. And also the story of From Hell is completely different than anything Sienkiewicz did. Well, that's not true because he did another thing with Alan Moore that is kind of similar. But there's not a lot of action. It's a lot of dialogue and people talking and
Yeah, well,
moodiness
it's a
and
historic
stuff
narrative
like that.
essentially. Like because I mean, we all know Jack the Ripper is a real person,
Right,
and it's a
right.
real thing that happened. And at the time, From Hell was sort of attempting to be like an extremely comprehensive version of what really happened. Like I'm fairly certain that like it was either like IDW or maybe it was like uh what's the other one I'm thinking, like is it Kitchen Sink or something like that,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
one of the places that was selling it, like had like when they had finished the entire run and they were like selling it completed version, they were like advertising it as the most realistic,
yeah. Kitchen sink.
scientifically looked at
Yeah,
version of what really happened and that this was really what happened kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like they were
yeah.
literally advertising it by saying like, oh yeah, we've like detective worked it backwards and this is what happened. Like they were literally like, you know what I mean?
Right,
Like
right.
trying to say like they'd figured it out or whatever. But that's funny because like I'm being alive as long as I have now, being like a 55-year-old dude. And, I've grown up with all those like urban legends of whatever, like Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster and Jack the Ripper. And it's like every 10 years, someone comes along and says they've solved the mystery. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. And they really haven't.
And they
Uh,
haven't. No one ever
yeah,
does. Like,
yeah,
still fun
but
though. You know what I mean? Like, and
yeah,
something like that is beautiful. That's a gorgeous piece of work. I love the line work in it too, man. It's just like, in doing a piece like that, it's so like difficult to convey because like it's like you were saying, it's not some big event piece with a bunch of like designed around a bunch of like large set ideas. These are all
yeah,
small vignette things, like they're people's lives. It's the inside intimate portrayal of human, like emotion and the things
yeah,
that drive
yeah,
us. Alan Moore is a storyteller, on par with frickin', any incredible great writer from the old times. His style is a little bit old, I think, even though he's very brilliant, and his stories are really good. I mean, sometimes I find him very contrived and bad, but most of the time
dude,
he's, even if I don't
dude.
like the
We've had
prose,
this
yeah, like even if I don't like the
more
prose, I
discussion.
still love what he's doing with the writing and his like the way he'll move the story and the way he'll like his story ideas. They're brilliant things. And Alan Moore is like he's probably the greatest writer in comic books, and very likely maybe he will always be that. We won't know. Maybe someone great will come along after we're gone, but Alan
Yeah,
Moore, anyone who's lucky enough to work with someone like him, you know you're going to be creating something that's fairly seminal. And, that's always something you have to sit back and applaud, because something
yeah,
like, From Hell doesn't go down easy. You know what I mean? If
yeah,
you're an
yeah.
artist that can complete something like that in a meaningful fashion, then you've achieved a certain level of greatness in the medium, I think.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things about Eddie Campbell, and I think I kind of trashed him a little bit in the beginning of this, saying that he wasn't really one of my favorites or whatever. I love his covers. I actually like his covers. If the interior work, I was really excited for the color version of From Hell to come out, because I thought all of the interiors were going to be colored like this, that would have been so insanely great.
That
But
would be wild, though.
painting, interiors is incredibly hard and time consuming, and I'm not sure that it would be worth it for him to do it like that. But these covers are amazing, and eventually we have to go through maybe a special multi artist poll for cover artists. Like, who do you think the best cover artist is? Because there's so many people that just do covers, but I really love his covers. I think they're fantastic.
I mean, those are absolutely gorgeous. I can only imagine, because they're two different styles. What he's working on the outside covers is a very different style than what he does for his
Yeah,
interior
yeah,
art. But I could still see, personally, I've never seen From Hell in color. I don't know what you're speaking of when you say you saw a color
yeah,
version of
yeah,
it. But I can only imagine it must be like a kind of a soft watercolory thing, because I couldn't imagine trying to go in and
it's
color
no,
that thing with
it's not.
computer
It's
colors.
not. That's what I wanted. I wanted that soft watercolory thing. It's like a digital coloring, it looks like.
That's horrifying to think about. I could not
That's
imagine
why I don't have
putting.
it. That's
Yeah, I
I've
could
looked
not
at it
imagine
in the
putting.
yeah, I've looked
Yeah,
at it in
putting.
the store multiple times and thinking I should pick this up, but then I look at the coloring and I'm like, ugh, it's just not what I want to see.
That's ridiculous, dude. Like, what a shame. That's just shameful to
Yeah,
even think about. Because can you
yeah,
imagine what some of that stuff would look at with Lynn Varney colors on it, like what she did
yeah,
with The
yeah,
Dark Knight Returns or something like that. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, dude, that would be so beautiful. Like, what
Yeah,
the heck?
it's the same. Or even Eddie. I mean, if he did the interiors like he colored the covers, then it would have been a masterpiece.
Yeah,
But
that's too
like I
bad,
said,
man.
it's so hard because like I think my cover work is better than my interior work, but it always is. I think everybody who does cover work, their interiors are, it's two different animals. Interiors and covers are just two different art forms completely.
It really is. You know, as a matter of fact, I did the cover for this that I'm looking at right here. And,
Yeah,
it's a cool cover. It's a wraparound cover. And I do think it's pretty good. Even I drew it.
yeah, it's
But,
awesome.
dude, I'm not crazy about the little figures right here. You know what I mean? They suck, dude. I kind of
They don't
blew it on
suck.
that, man. I'm looking at it right now and it's like, I love this cover. I think it's amazing. I think I probably could have done a little bit better if I'd have just I don't know, I struggle with these medium-sized figures and having them
Yeah,
all inside the palm of the hand and still having them, separate enough and identifiable enough was extremely difficult. So there is, just like you're saying, there's a completely different challenge to doing a cover than it
yeah.
is to doing the interior art. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's an
definitely. The
absolute
composition on a
Mhm.
cover is like composition is big inside the interiors, but for a cover, composition is everything.
Yeah, I love the Dr. Entropy holding the figures, you know what I mean? Because it gives you this idea of how Dr. Entropy is in control and these guys are playthings to him or whatever, kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I just don't like the execution of it. I just feel like I failed a little bit, but whatever.
Well,
But
that's how you grow. That's how
yeah,
if you only loved your art and you never thought you did anything that was, could be better, that you would never grow. So you're
true
right
that.
there. You're growing as an
But,
artist,
like we'll just stop for a moment and just talk about the insanely rad colors by Jake Quirk, who is Mangled
Yeah.
Angle
Yeah.
on Instagram. And I mean, this is, this thing would not look this hot if it was not for Jake's insanely rad colors. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Entropy Alliance #1 is looking
Yeah, he
mind
colored this
blowingly
too.
rad.
He just does
Yeah, it's
crazy good
so
coloring.
awesome. So awesome. But yeah, just having fun today, you guys. just want to share some Bill Sienkiewicz with you guys. Some Dave, or no, I keep saying Dave McKeon.
Eddie Campbell.
Eddie Campbell, yeah. Just super great artists. Both, guys that have just done incredible, things. People we aspire to, be able to be like. Wishing we could have that level of like penetrating the comic book, idea and getting your work out to an audience that appreciates and loves what you do. Both those guys have done amazing work like that. But Alex and I are also comic book creators. And I'm the creator of Six Lords of Sound, but Alex and I together are the creator of Entropy Alliance. And Entropy Alliance 1 is finished and it is printing, and people are going to be able to get their hands on this very soon. This is an idea that Alex had, but it is put together by some amazing artists, Barrows, Alexander DeKaiju, Jake Quirk, Charles Dougalato, Alexander Turbin, Swayze Crazy on Instagram. And all these guys did really beautiful work. This is Jamie Barrows. Awesome. Here's Alexander Turbin. There's some Swayze Crazies, the Sentinel, super fun. And all these are slightly different. Everyone kind of did their own thing. But the really joyful thing is when you read all these together, this is Alexander DeKaiju, is that they all tell a fairly linear story that points towards what is going to become a epic comic book, limited series that Alexander and I are working on. And here, my page is right here. And if this stuff gets you excited, you're going to want to get, this book, and you're definitely going to want to get your hands on all the comics that are going to be following this down the line. As Alex and I are currently working on just an absolutely over the top premiere version of the Entropy Alliance story that's going to be like Japanese manga level violence and action and black and white, just high def storytelling, meeting classic, 1990s, 2000 DC Marvel superhero comics. So it's going to be super special. You guys are going to want to get your hands on it. And when you do, you're going to go crazy for how rad it is. All right. Go ahead, Alex. What's up? Let's see the new Random Access.
Yeah, I produce a comic book every month called Random Access. We're up to number 30. And you can get these at patreon.com/Alexander Turbin, or you can get them at my website, alexanderturbin.com, or you can contact me at alexturbin0441 at Yahoo or alexturbin0441 at Instagram. And this is my newest venture, which is my sword and sorcery thing that I'm doing, where it's the Savage Cyclops, Morgrim the Savage Cyclops, and it's a whole new storyline and character and everything. And so I'm pretty excited about that.
I love that shot of at the back where it transitions from the baby to him as a full-grown adult on the horseback. And I love his face right there because it's so Schwarzenegger. It's like it could just be like Schwarzenegger with the Cyclops eye, and the white hair. Dude, it's a really great shot.
Yeah, well, one of the challenges of doing the Cyclops, which I'm so hugely glad you said that about the scene transition. I love scene transitions in comic books. It may be one of my favorite things, and it's one of the reasons that I love Alan Moore so much, because he adds all of these scene transitions. In Watchmen, you see the moon, and then it'll turn into that happy face, or the nostalgia bottle will turn into some kind of whatever it turns into. But I really was trying to have this transform into Morgrim as he's the baby, so he's the baby, and then it's the same character. But also, it's so hard.
It's a great shot, dude, with his eye closed and the sun on his face, and you feel the like you hear like the music swell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As we pull back to see the prologue is finished and the actual story is about to begin. Great.
100% what I was looking for. But it's a challenge because as a Cyclops, it's so weird because we have this image of beauty, and it's a person with two eyes. It's a woman with two eyes, and it's seeing your protagonist as not a beautiful person it's challenging, really.
Well, so even still, I mean, you have him drawn with a certain amount of aesthetic handsomeness, and that's good. Yeah. Like I said, he looks like Schwarzenegger, and that's right where you're headed. But the thing that's really challenging is that by having only the single eye, it's very limiting on the type of emotional range that you
Yeah,
convey.
exactly,
So you're
exactly.
struggling all the time. That's just like what's her name? Like
Yeah.
what is it, Leela or whatever in Futurama, the Cyclops
Oh
girl in
yeah,
Futurama.
yeah.
Um, it's the same thing. It's hard to convey, like because anger is two eyebrows drawn down. You know what I mean?
Right,
But your
right.
character only has one eye. So like things like anger and stuff like that start to become difficult to convey, or happiness,
Yep,
because happiness
yep.
is two big open eyes. So you know what I mean. So when
Right,
you
right, right,
limit yourself to one eye, because the eyes are the window to the soul, so
right.
instantaneously, the character has a limitation about himself simply because he only has one window and not two windows. You know what I mean? And like that's
Right,
that's a
right.
that's a limiting thing. So that's an artistic challenge that you're trying to meet. And so far, you're doing a
Yep.
really great job, man.
Thank you.
I'm excited and looking forward to more of those. And seeing them in color really, makes it all come together too. Like it's
Yeah,
beautiful,
yeah.
beautiful colors, and the snow and the pink and the purple. It's all coming together great.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So I guess that's pretty much our show.
Yeah, I think that's it. We're ready to get out of here, you guys. Here at the end, Alex always likes to tell you a little something, because this is what we really believe in our hearts. This is what we do. I'm about to leave right now. I'm about to get back to creating. Hopefully, when you guys leave, you guys all get back to creating. Because what should everybody do when they're done? And what we love, what everybody does. What do they do, Alex?
They got to keep on creating.
All right, you guys. Have a good day. We'll see you next time.